Good morning, Ms. Johnson. Thank you for being on the call with us this morning. Do we have anybody from the executive branch on the line? Okay, not hearing anything. We'll go ahead and proceed forward. Do we have anybody on the line who wishes to announce themselves for the record?
Good morning, Madam Chair. This is Manley Begay Jr. I serve as Vice Chair for the Judicial Conduct Commission.
Good morning, Mr. Begay, and thank you for being on the line with us. So with that, we'll go ahead and we'll proceed forward to the next item on the agenda, which is review and adopt the agenda. Lorraine, can you go ahead and read the agenda into the record for us, please?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair and members of the Law and Order Committee and those that are on the call. Agenda of the Law and Order Committee, 24th Navajo Nation Council. Regular reading through telecommunication, October 24th, 2022. 10 a.m. presiding, Honorable Eugenia Charles Newton, Chairwoman. Honorable Altoso, Vice Chairperson. 1, call meeting to order, roll call and invocation. Number 2, recognize guests and visiting officials. Number 3, review and adopt agenda. Number 4, review and adopt the journals. There's one journal, October 10th, 2022. 5, receiving reports. A, report from Lucinda Yellowhair, Probation Officer, Probation Services, Judicial Branch, regarding individual arrested agreement with what is the recommendation after the court and what do they follow afterwards, excuse me. B, report from Chief Justice Jane, Office of the Chief Justice, Judicial Branch in regards to probationary judge and evaluation within the last year and a half. C, report from Judicial Conduct Commission, Robert Yossi, Chairman, on the status of the judges, how are the judges selected and so forth. D, report from Ernest H. Begay, Traditional Counselor, Behavioral Health Department, Utah Navajo Health System, Inc., in regards to what kinds of
forum for April and Travis.
How can he assist the nomination with these cases that needs referral? Old business. A, legislation number 0130-19. B, legislation number 0186-22. C, report from Lair Chief, Fire Chief, Navajo Nation Fire Rescue Services on the status of equipment purchase using the tax dollars, what equipment were purchased, and a summary / breakdown on the costs on October 10th, 2022. Report was given by John Williams, Fire Captain. At the end of the meeting, LOC members request for a written and verbal report to be given by Mr. Chi on Monday, October 24th, 2022. 7, new business. A, legislation number 0180-22. B, legislation number 0193-22. C, legislation number 0195-22. D, legislation number 02-0201-22. E, discussion purpose, Law and Order Committee to set a date for special meeting on October 26th or 28th, 2022 at 10 a.m. through telecommunication regarding Title 17. 8, close the meeting, announcement and adjournment. Madam Chair, thank you.
Lorraine, are you done reading the agenda into the record?
Yes, Madam Chair.
So with that, committee members, the agenda has been read into the record at this time. Can I get a motion and a second for the agenda?
Vice Chair, a motion.
Motion made by Vice Chair Otto. So can I get a second?
Second, Delegate James.
Second made by Delegate Vince James. Committee members, are there any questions, any comments, or any amendments that need to be made to the agenda at this time? Okay, not hearing anything. we'll go ahead and we'll proceed forward to the vote to adopt the agenda as is. Cheryl, can you assist us with the roll call vote, please?
Yes, Honorable Otto, how do you vote?
I vote green.
Thank you, Honorable Otto, votes green. Honorable Vince James, how do you vote?
Delegate James votes green.
Thank you, Honorable Vince James, votes green. Honorable Eugene So, how do you? Honorable Edmund Yazzie, how do you vote?
Green.
Thank you, Honorable Edmund Yazzie, votes green. Honorable Eugene So, how do you vote? Honorable Madam Chair Charles Newton, you have 3 in favor, 0 opposed, and 2 not voting, Madam Chair.
Thank you for that, Cheryl. So with a vote of 3 in favor, 0 opposed, the agenda hereby passes as is. So we'll go ahead and proceed forward to the next item on the agenda. That's item number 4, review and adopt the journals. We do have a journal for October 10th, 2022. Cheryl, for the record, can you tell us when you sent that journal?
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. Honorable members, LOC members, I did send the journal out on Thursday, October 2022 at 10:31 a.m., Madam Chair.
Committee members, as Cheryl stated, the journal was sent to our email address at this time. Can I get a motion and a second to accept the journal dated October 10th, 2022?
Vice Chair motions to accept the all journal all in one, within one motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Chair motions to accept the journal dated October 10th, 2022. Can I get a second?
Second, Delegate James.
Second made by Delegate Vince James. So with that, committee members, are there any questions, any comments, or any amendments that need to be made to the journal at this time? Not hearing anything but the wind. We're going to go ahead and proceed forward to a roll call vote. Cheryl, can you assist us with that?
Yes, Honorable Otto, how do you vote?
I vote green.
Thank you, Honorable Otto, votes green. Honorable Vince James, how do you vote?
Delegate James votes green.
Thank you, Honorable Vince James, votes green. Honorable Eugene So, how do you vote? Honorable Edmund Yazzie, how do you vote?
Green.
Thank you, Honorable Edmund Yazzie, votes green. Honorable Eugene So, how do you vote? Honorable Eugene So, how do you vote? Honorable Madam Chair Charles Newton, you have 3 in favor, 0 opposed, and 2 not voting, Madam Chair.
Thank you for that, Cheryl. So with that, the October 10th, 2022 journal is hereby accepted. We'll go ahead and proceed forward to the next item on the agenda. We do have receiving reports. We have a report at this time from Lucinda Yellowhair, probation officer with probation services under the judicial branch. This report is regarding individuals who are arrested, the plea agreements that are made, and what the recommendations are after court. And then also what probation does to follow up afterwards. Miss Lucinda Yellowhair, are you on the line? Second call for Miss Lucinda Yellowhair, probation officer.
Hello, good morning.
Miss Yellowhair?
Yes. Good morning,
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Good morning, Yat Bin. Miss Yellowhair, thank you for being on the line. Miss Yellowhair, the Law and Order Committee has asked you to come and provide a report regarding I just read, the reason for the report. At this time, I will read to you the rules of Law and Order Committee. I don't believe that you presented before this committee before. You will have 20 minutes to present your information. You can call up to 2 agents who can help to assist you. During that time, I'd like to remind everyone to make sure that their phone is on mute or to make sure that their computer is muted. You can look down at your phone and make sure that the mute button is turned on, and that's how you know your phone is muted. Please do not disrupt the presenter. You will be disrupting work that's being done on behalf of the Navajo Nation and on behalf of the Navajo people. So please make sure that your phone is muted during that time. Ms. Yellowhair, during this time when you are done with your presentation, if you could please let the Law and Order Committee know that you are done. And then at that time, we'll go ahead and turn the floor over to committee members who may have questions. Ms. Yellowhair, do you have any questions regarding the procedure of your presentation this morning?
No, not at this time.
Thank you for that, Ms. Yellowhair. So with that, committee members, the presenter is present at this time. Can I get a motion and a second to hear the report? Second call, committee members, we need a motion and a second to hear the report from probation.
Delegate James motion.
Delegate Vince James makes the motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
Second, was that Delegate Edmund Yazzie?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Thank you. So with that, Ms. Yellowhair, a motion and a second has been established. We'll go ahead and turn the floor over to you at this time for 20 minutes to provide your information to the Law and Order Committee. With that, Ms. Yellowhair, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good morning again, Madam Chair. Thank you, everybody. And good morning to the Law and Order Committee members. Yeah, I have been to everybody out there this morning. My name is Lucinda Yellowhair. I'm the Chief Probation Officer under the Navajo Nation Judicial Branch. Aro don na enchlanige e tapang handa na enchlon kia ani bashashin. Aro kisa cheat ni e dashachero, twada cheat ni e dashan nala I son and shlino denahot sodo e nasha. I've been with the Judicial Branch for about little over 3 decades, and I've been a probation officer as well as a court administrator. In the last 12 years, I've been in the position as a chief probation officer. So I submitted a report to you as a request to report on the Navajo Nation Probation Parole Services. I submitted a document to Ms. Spencer on Friday that has a report that entails basically the background, a little of the statutory requirement services, that includes the question that I'm here before you, the Law and Order this morning, which is the plea agreement, and then training, and then needs, and then moving forward and funding services, funding in general. So that's what entails the report that I have. So I'm going to go directly to the question that was asked for this particular report, which is regarding individual arrests, the plea agreement, what is the recommendation after the court, and what do they follow afterwards. In terms specifically for plea agreement, a plea agreement is a criminal rule process where an agreement is entered by the Navajo Nation, the prosecutor's office, and the defendant. Probation services can get involved in the process of an agreement for the purpose of supervision as a part of a condition in a plea agreement for the courts to consider. So what I did in the report was I went and took Rule 22, the plea agreement, Rule 22A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. And so I went ahead and took that verbatimly from the criminal rules and procedures from the code, the rules. So at the time of a plea agreement that is being made between the prosecutor's office or legal counsel and the defendant, it's an agreement to the court to be placed, perhaps maybe even on supervision. Usually conditions come with it. Now, if a court accepts it, then the individual can be placed on probation and or released, or whatever the court feels deemed necessary at that time according to statute. But let's say the defendant agreed in the agreement made that they're going to be placed on probation, and certain conditions are outlined in the J&M, which is the actual court order, then they're referred over to probation services for the amount of time that the individual will be placed on probation. It could be, the time could be anywhere from 30, 90, 60 days to over a year, whatever the agreement between the parties made. So once the referral is made over to probation services, we take the case, the initial case, and it's logged and is assigned to a probation officer. Probation officer then assesses the case and determines, depending on the conditions of the case that were listed in the J&M, the individual can be, again, assessed. A case plan is put together, an assessment is done to see whether or not any types of counseling is required. Again, according to the plea agreement, if it requires drug testing or any of those issues, then the probation officer goes ahead and schedules drug testing if need be, drug and alcohol testing. Anything that's listed on the plea agreement is exactly what the probation officers follow through to make sure that they successfully complete it. Now, for any time, let's say that does not happen and the individual absconds, doesn't report in, probation officer starts looking for them and goes to the home, their school, or their place of employment, and they can't find them and family doesn't know where they are, then that's reported back to the prosecutor's office. And the prosecutor's office can follow a motion for revocation or what they feel is necessary. So that's basically the end of the supervision of probation. But should the individual complete it successfully, they have to obtain attendance from counseling services, and that all their alcohol, drug testings have come clean, and they've complied, they've adhered to all the conditions and the court orders that the court had referred over, and everything was complied with. And the probation officer basically closes out the case. Again, it makes a recommendation to prosecutor's office, and the prosecutor can motion to the court for a discharge. So basically, that's what a plea agreement is. Again, there are other ways that a person can be placed on probation, but specifically, this is what is being asked. Now, the probation officer doesn't get involved at any time of the arrest. That's usually done during the arrest time, and the criminal complaint, or the police officer that draws up the complaint then files that complaint with the prosecutor's office. But we don't usually get involved until a plea agreement is entered and referred to probation services by the court. Again, what the court recommends in the court order is, that's basically up to them what the agreement was made between. Again, there could be a legal defense counsel in this party that's involved. And so an agreement, basically the court just follows that, and again, can deny it, or it depends on, if they deny it, it would depend on criminal history. Again, a probation officer can get involved there, requesting that, a criminal background be required to the court within so many days. That's what they call a pre-sentence report, or in court inquiries. And so a probation officer will either forward a specific, answer in terms of the probation, not probation, but criminal history. If it's a pre-sentence report, then it comes in a form of a report, another comprehensive report that comes along with a recommendation at the end. That again is submitted to the prosecutor's office to review, and also given a copy to the courts for them to review and act on. So those are some of the ways that probation officers get involved in a plea agreement and or sentencing for sentencing purposes. So that's basically what happens after that. Now, again, when it comes directly, again, over to probation, parole services, again, it's, it depends on what's on the court order. And sometimes the court order may have specific conditions that a probation officer follows. Now, if it's very general and they're just placed on probation, then the probation officer can go ahead and, again, like I said, assess the case and make determinations on their needs. Does intake, does their needs, there's an assessment, risk assessment they do. They put a case plan together and they make all the referrals depending on what the assessment says for their counseling. And so the probation officer will have them on reporting status. It could be, again, based on the risk assessment. It could be a week. It could be every 2 weeks. It could be once a month. That depends on the risk assessment. So the assessment is done first before anything to ensure that. And again, depending on the progress of the individual, if an individual was to come in once a week, then that can actually decrease to bi-weekly. But it's the individual and the probation officers working together, making progress is how they work that. And depending on the time that they're placed on probation, it can go anywhere from 30 days to over a year, depending on what the charges are or whether or not they're consecutive or non-consecutive cases. So it all varies. So primarily, that's what happens during a plea agreement. Then it's kind of very similar to probation. If a person goes before the court, they have their day in court, they plead guilty or not guilty. Should they plead guilty, again, the same process happens. An individual is sentenced. But sometimes, again, before sentencing, perhaps the court and or prosecutor may have some question before sentencing. A pre-sentence report, again, is requested. It's given so many days to respond back to the court with information they're asking for by a probation officer, and that's all done again. Again, once they're sentenced, a probation case comes over. Then in other cases, they come before the court if they just plead guilty, and they can be placed on probation from that point on. But the process, once it comes over to probation, is primarily the same. An assessment is done, intake, an assessment, case plan, all that is done, and then the work begins. So it's consistent, and again, every person is different, background is different, what the issues and the circumstances are different, so it varies from person to person. We always like to say that we're not a cookie cutter department. We're not. It's really dependent on that individual, who they are, what their background is, what landed them in the circumstances that they are, and what they do to try to help themselves get out of what they went through, and or probation officers are there to ensure that, they rethink about the decisions that they made that landed them where they're at. And through counseling, through listening, through motivational interviewing, through different methods, the modalities that probation officers have learned thus far and able to work one-on-one with an individual can get them through that. Again, every person is different, and we do have rules and procedures that are in place should an individual not adhere to conditions or the court orders, and there's a process, a revocation process for that, or non-compliance back to the prosecutor and the courts and so forth. So there is so much entailed. I've included basically a lot of that in the report that I have here, and what it requires to work with an individual. And what it requires, again, as stated in here, is, people, services, the support staff, individuals. One very important emphasis I put in here is the report writing. Report writers, the legal, as I put in there in the needs, the legal assistance. are very important here because probation officers do look at that, do require assistance. And sometimes when they're putting a recommendation together, you know, it gets very complex. So it's really helpful when you have legal assistance there, like a staff attorney, to get, adequate and proper guidance for probation officers to complete a pre-sentence report. As I stated in the report from the beginning, what our regions are and how far out we spread. We have 13 districts. We have 24 probation frontline officers. We have 24 frontline officers, and we only have 2 office technicians that take care of 13 districts by regions. We have an eastern region, a central region, and a western region that includes in these districts. So we have 3 senior probation officers and then myself, which totals up to 30 staff here in probation services. Now, I've also emphasized in here that probation officers wear many hats. You have pretrial services, and then you have post-judgment. Pretrial services, you have pretrial services in terms of supervision for individuals that are awaiting pretrial hearings, and sometimes the prosecution will have the person, again, be placed on supervision, not with conditions, but just supervising them while they're awaiting pretrial or hearings. And so they release them, or else they release them to a third-party individual. Even that still requires a probation officer to supervise. Then you have the pre-sentence reports that are requested, and then you have plea agreements, and then you have pretrial diversions, and that's another program under an agreement made with the prosecutors, a diversion program. That seems to have worked years ago, and we rarely see those today, but I think those pretrial diversions were very effective. And so those are services that a probation officer out there in our partners out there, county, state, and federal, they have a person for each one of those in pretrial services, a pre-sentence report writer, and collateral field officers. There is a person for each one of those positions. Then you have post-judgment, when a person enters a guilty and they're placed on probation. And because of circumstances, again, they could be the only one working in their family, however they plead to the court and they're released to probation. And you have a person that's there doing intake. That's a separate person. Another person that does the case risk assessment is another person that does the actual case planning. And again, collateral field visits are included in that. You have a person for each one of those also. Then on top of that, you have court requests. Court requests could be anything during a hearing that could be happening and there was our pretrial services where court can recess and request a probation officer's assistance to come over, and it could be recessed for however many, maybe an hour, to get some information from family if the person lives nearby, or go to the Department of Behavioral Health Services. There are services that the person is doing. If the person says, I didn't bring any kind of proof with me or confirmation that there was any counseling that was done, an officer is usually the one sent out there to obtain those certificates of attendance or some sort to bring back to the court, and then the hearing proceeds. So when that happens, it's that moment's notice that everything that they're doing, they have to just put down and go, get in the vehicle and do what they need to do. So in our neighboring partners, our county and state and federal, they have a person for each one of these roles, positions. In Navajo, one probation officer wears all those hats. On top of that, in addition to that, they also hear cases, which are complex cases. They're different, and they have a different rule under the Nabebahazani, they follow those rules. And again, it's very complex only because there's other people involved, like guardians and families and and relatives are involved in those parties. And, you know, it's a lot of work working with children as chinnigical because there's other people involved. So on top of that, they have those cases. So our Navajo Nation probation officers wear many hats, a lot of hours, a lot of days. It goes on. And I commend our probation officers for doing a great job day in and day out, that they're there and they follow the statutory requirements, the rules, the laws. They follow that. There are processes, and sometimes they have questions. Sometimes they need guidance, and this is where I am requesting, and I've been asking for a staff attorney for probation services. Because of the rules and the policies and the procedures that we follow, we are statutory, meaning we are required by law to follow certain rules and procedures also. So, and then what allows us to work the way that we work and enforce and have the authority is, again, the plan of operation that we have that was established back in 2014. So as of since then to today, we've been in our own business unit. Again, it just, the report is very comprehensive. It tells you in details where each probation officer is situated in. It gives you a little summary of the services that they do and the fundings that we need, the initiatives that we also have. Training is ongoing. Training for probation parole services is ongoing. It's a need. It's a must because of the environmental changes and the trends that are changing within our society here on Navajo. So our probation requires that training consistently, continually. And the support there is much needed. Of course, it requires a lot of funding to do that, to aid unique kids. So we're constantly looking for funding, looking for grants, looking for some kind of sources to allow us to obtain training, to keep us abreast of what we do as a probation staff. And so moving forward real quickly, probation service has identified and is in the process of developing new initiatives. And one is, of course, the reentry, the MRT, which is the moral recognition therapy, which we're going to start expanding by the end of the month once we get through a certain phase within the branch. And that requires direct one-on-one engagement with the client. And then moving forward, again, is motivational interviewing. Motivational interviewing is a part of an evidence-based practice method. And, you know, we've been doing this for many, many years to ensure that our clients, who are majority Navajo, ages range from children, teens to, you know, elders, 70 years old. But those are the clients' ages that sometimes we receive. And most of the time, the interpretation of Navajo explanation, description is much more effective than using the Western model. So we have to incorporate talking to them in Navajo, teaching them, showing them, letting them know it's okay that we're here, we're trying to help. How can we help you? How can I help beside you? And so forth. Motivational interviewing. That's been very effective for us. And then one of the biggest initiatives is the Probation Academy. An academy, since we are the largest tribal probation department nationwide, meaning in the United States, the largest Indian tribe, we have the largest probation staff overall. And we have new probation officers that are coming, that leaving, that move into greener pastures. And so we're always, you know, bringing in new probation officers. So what we've initiated back in 2018 was the Train the Trainer program, which instead of sending people out, and what we've noticed is being trained by our neighboring partners that are issues related to county, state, and federal, but nothing when you come back onto Navajo. So what we came up with was the Train the Trainer, and training our own staff using our own Navajo resources like prosecutors' office, judges, staff attorneys, public defenders. And so people like that are within the criminal justice system, our own police, and so forth that have come back, and we trained with them. The self-defensive tactics, which is a must, it's a need, we usually get from our federal partners. Our federal probation officers are all more than willing at no charge to train our probation officers using the civil approach, meaning, because probation officers aren't armed, our probation officers, that we use that, and that's effective also. So there's the effectiveness of using the civil approach, especially to our Navajo clients, is, basically comes back down with seems to be very effective when using and working with your probation clients also. So we're comfortable in using that. We're adjusted to that, and that is part of what they call the evidence-based practice that's most effective, is our and our understanding our way of life and using that concept of the community. That's how our probation officers have been trained and speak and engage and communicate with their clients. A lot of them come back and say, thank you for allowing me to understand my shortcomings, my decision makings that weren't appropriate for me. We can't save them all, but who we can, we work very hard. I'm sure if we had all the staff appropriately positioned where they need to be, we could do more. You could see the recidivism rate, decrease a lot more than it's inching as it is now. But there's a lot of work that needs to be done in this area. More work, more initiatives, but moving forward, we identify those. But the bottom line is that the support and the education near side by side with our clients seems to be most effective. So we see reports from our staff, and that's what we use. I understand where we need to go, what kind of training needs to be done is the communication I get from
Ms.
the
Yellow
probation.
Hair, I apologize, but you're out of time. We've given you 20 minutes.
Okay, I'm sorry, but that is basically what I have, Madam Chair. That is the extent of my report, and I was almost done anyway, but thank you for giving me this opportunity. Yeah.
Thank you for that. And just for the record, we did give you additional time. After your 20 minutes was up, we gave you additional time. So with that, committee members, are there any questions or comments regarding the report that has been provided to us here by Ms. Lucinda Yellowhair from the probation officer and the services that they provide to the courts and to the people? Ms. Yellowhair, I have a couple of questions just really quickly. Number one is, do you guys use a uniform, I guess a uniform form when filling out like the pre-sentence or maybe even the recommendations for coming out from probation? That's number one. Number two is, do you guys work with other services that are provided to Navajo people, such as, behavioral health, to make sure that there are proper, I guess, services in place when making when making recommendations? I asked that question because I remember being a prosecutor. Whenever we got the recommendations from probation and there was recommendations for, let's say, mental health services, we learned that that those types of services were not offered in Eastern Agency, and it made it very difficult because a lot of our offenders would come back and say, I tried to abide by my, my probationary recommendations, my sentencing report, but I couldn't because, this, I don't know, maybe IHS stopped offering that type of counseling service. And so it was really hard to get people to finish up. So are you guys working with other, resources out there? In addition to that, just so you know, Ms. Yellow here, we do have a report right now from, I was actually hoping that Mr. Ernest Harry Begay would go before the Chief Justice, and then also before the report from the Judicial Conduct Commission, because he's going to be talking about some of the services that Utah Navajo Health Systems provide. And the reason we asked for him to be on this agenda was so that you could hear some of the services that are being provided. So committee members, I'd like to ask one of you to possibly, do, I guess maybe suspend the floor rules to put Ernest Harry Begay second after Miss Lucinda Yellow here before we get into the probationary judges and then the Judicial Conduct Commission. So with that, Miss Yellow here, I'm going to turn the floor back over to you since there's no other questions.
Okay, thank you. So 2 questions. First question is, do we use a uniform form when filling out a pre-sentence report? No, we don't. Again, that goes back to, everybody's different, the background, their history, their circumstances in terms of whether it's a professional job, health, everything. Every person is different. So that's the purpose of a pre-sentence report investigation. And if the investigation is conducted, a probation officer goes out. It takes time. They interview people such as, the individual. They interview family members. They interview people that live in that household, victims, and even community members. They also go to their job sites and or schools, wherever they're in school, if they're in school. So they investigate, they interview, they take the time out to do that. Again, it's who this individual is once a case comes over. When a case comes over, then a pre-sentence report is done. When the pre-sentence report is done, all that information that they gathered, all the important information, the background, the health, everything is put into one. It's one comprehensive report. Not one pre-sentence report, whether it's an adult or a child, is the same. They all differ. And so background checking requires them to go to the court and or we look into our own records, our own, how many times this individual may have been placed on probation. That's the information that the court is looking for. So the investigation and the writing, they go together. So it takes a lot of time to do that. And then number 2, you asked if when a probation is placed on, when a client is placed on probation, when they come over, an intake is done. An assessment, an informal assessment is done. Now that assessment basically is, again, when the intake is being done, a probation officer receives a case. It might be an individual they have seen and or have been placed on probation not too long ago. They look into what happened in the last case, and what happened. Did they go to counseling, and what was the offense about? What was the offense? Perhaps maybe the last offense was public intoxication. AA meetings might have been done. This time there may be a victim involved due to alcohol or whatever the case may be. Again, we reach out for, we do what we call an informal assessment, and that informal assessment generates a referral. A referral is done to the only primary resource we have here on Navajo is Department of Behavioral Health Services. Back in the day, they used to have Indian Health Services, counseling services with them. We rarely see that today. I think the reason why they turn clients away in terms of mental health is because of the jurisdiction issues. federal, federal employee, federal monies, federal entities, and so forth. So when you send clients there, they prefer us to send to Department of Behavioral Health Services first. Mental health, we have a lot of issues. We come across, again, jurisdictional issues, and a lot of IHS do not accept cases referred anymore because one of the reasons they're saying is they don't have anybody, a psychiatrist or a therapist, licensed therapist or a psychiatrist situated in any of the IHS services here on Navajo. Very limited. And if you do, you're gonna only see one on Navajo. And sometimes we do travel the miles just to determine if an evaluation needs to be done. And I think the last, correct, I might be wrong, but the last certified or licensed professional that was seated and situated was in the Tehoto Medical Center, and that was it. They didn't have it anywhere else. I'm not sure, and they change all the time, so it could be somewhere else, but it's because of that. So, but most of our referrals are done to primarily Department of Behavioral Health Services. Now, if you're here situated up in the northern Arizona, up here from probably Navajo Mountain into Kayenta through here into Shiprock, then the use of Utah Navajo is available. But I'm not sure, and I don't want to say they don't reach out down further south or way out east or way out southwest. I'm sure they have requirements and criteria for that. But I know that if you're up here and way up here in northern Arizona into the Utah court, then the Utah Navajo is available. But everywhere else, you will have just the primarily Department of Behavioral Health Services. And we do have a meeting that we are scheduling with them soon to, because we're moving back into the courts, what their criteria and what their requirements are while working through the pandemic, and what we need to tell our clients when they come to see us as we make referrals to their offices, what we need to tell them to be cautious of and be aware of, so that they understand that when the referral is made, that is required of them before they go over. So it's that way with us here at our offices also. There's certain things that they have to make sure they're okay. If they're not feeling well, then we don't see them. We just communicate by phone. So that's what I have for you, Madam Chair. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you for that, Ms. Yellow Hair. I do have one last question. And this question is pertaining to the safety of probation officers. I do recall a couple of times probation officers, when I was a prosecutor there in Crown Point, they would come in and they would talk about, how they were going to go check up on someone, but because they feared for their safety, they weren't able to, to visit with that person or maybe even do a drug test, even though the probation office did request them to come in to do that. And I know that during those times, probation officers did require police assistance or police escort to visit these individuals who were on probation because they did random visits or, because they failed to show up for a meeting. Is that something that the probation officers still face today? And do you have any recommendations on how we can address that situation? Ms. Yellowhair?
Yes, thank you. Officer safety is on the table every day. We take it very seriously. Before the pandemic, we were doing, as I was explaining earlier, the train the trainer, and then having our federal partners more than willing to train our officers on an annual basis, techniques, weaponless, what they call weaponless techniques, and to ensure their own safety. That was before the pandemic. Now that we are on the other end, moving our way out of the pandemic, of course, things have changed the way our society thinks, and what we went through just virtually, helping people and people virtually going through the courts, what their thought is, what their mindset is, that perhaps maybe the courts have become, I don't want to use the word lenient, but less stringent, I guess, because they're not before the courts. What they're thinking is not as it was before. Now it coming back on the other end now is we don't know what they think. We don't know how their home is. Some people are still skittish of having people come to their homes, or police or so forth. They refuse to have visitors and so forth. Those are things we already took into consideration a year ago in preparing. Should we go back? When we go back, what do we have to look out for? So we had our officers doing virtual training as to how to approach a home, how to approach an individual. Again, the civilian approach seems to be very effective. What does that mean? It means, approaching an individual based on deep in yenashado, just keeping it very civil, casual, and approachable. Those are the training, techniques that we're going to be moving into, and some of our officers already are aware of that. And so we're going to be training each other. Again, the training in the area of officer safety is a need, and it has to be consistent. It has to be all the time. We can't let our guards down. We can't become complacent and comfortable. We can't, especially at this day and time. When the police request assistance is needed, yes, it's still there. Again, this is dependent on district to district. Some districts, in terms of police, they'll say we don't have the manpower to send an officer out with you guys, especially if you receive a report where there's danger involved. The individual can be combative, or there's suspicion of weapons involved. When there is a suspicion of weapons, or we have to obtain weapons from their home, because one of the conditions, it may state that weapons need to be removed, which does require police assistance. In those cases, police have been very helpful, and they appreciate us calling on them for assistance because we're not armed. So we've done very well and working well. It's the communicating with them and telling them that, they need to be there to assist us in terms of safety. And so we're working on having that continual, work support by the police. Again, just like our department, we change, so does police. So we also have to continuously meet with them, meet new, lieutenants and commanders and stuff, meet the new chief police again, and have him understand that we are an important entity also that requires their assistance for the purpose of safety. And again, random visits, we do train. Again, we train our officers that if you sense danger, we don't need to go to the home. If we sense danger, then common sense is walk away, drive away, and you can try to do this at another time or make communication other ways. So those are the kinds of trainings that we have. But one very important thing with Navajo Nation Probation Services that's different from any other tribal probation parole services, which seems to be effective, is that we have our language, one, and then is very, very important. I say this because the Nick Ebijaniho, the nest, and then they introduce themselves and it might be them or their child or somebody else, you'll get a very working response. They'll be willing to share, they'll be willing to help. Whereas if you come in with weapon and, you know, you come in with this approach of, I'm going to enforce, they're going to resist you. They're going to.
I knew of someone that had passed from COVID.
And so with that, AA, they refuse that. And so, you know, I've traveled into many tribal courts, other tribal courts and neighboring, and they find that the Navajo way of approach using and using the communication in the Hajon concept, it's very effective. Some tribes are very saddened that, you know, their existing way of life, their language and their concept doesn't exist anymore. They're saddened by that, but they really hold Navajo very high because they said, my gosh, if that works, it's a way of working with people. And I that's what we have. It works for us. It works effectively. We just need more training. We just need more engagement. We just need to learn and to keep learning and so forth, and to keep communicating and keep, you know, taking care of each other and watching out for each other. We never go out in the field alone. I always have probation officers pairing together. They do not travel alone. So radios back in the vehicles and handheld radios are another, you know, safety issues that we're looking into. And I'm looking at, you know, some funds through 638 to help us get that, because when a court requests that a pre-sentence report is done, an investigation goes with it, which requires an interview, which means you have to go into the field, go into their home, bring them out and or talk to them. It requires them that. So some kind of a safety. We have vests for them now. Our probation officers, they have vests for them now. And, you know, communication to get help in case of the young ones, they're, you know, unfortunately, they didn't grow with the teachings of some of us did. And so in Binsikis, because of the substances they take, they think, they react hostilely, you know, violently. We have to be always looking out for that. Always make sure that our staff is okay, that they made it out of where they went to go do their interviews and they get back to the workplace. That's where I'm requesting for police assistance and support, is that they communicate with our officers that are in the field as well as their own officers. You know, our officers are just as important, because we all work under the criminal justice system and we all need to take care of each other. So that support is very much requested too, is, you know, the continual communication and working with our Navajo police. So that's what I have for you, Madam Chair.
Thank you for that, Ms. Yellowhair. We do have a delegate on the line who wishes to ask questions. So at this time, I'm going to go ahead and recognize Delegate Amber Crotty. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Yati Shadis, Madam Chair, committee members. Briefly, in terms of the report, can you provide to the committee and to the council, what is the steps or what is the policy when there's a Navajo citizen who is put on probation or needs to be monitored, and they're out of our jurisdiction and requesting for Navajo Nation to agree to those terms? And what is the capacity of probation to provide or assist in that monitoring? And is there any formalized agreements? I was under the impression that there was a more formalized process, but I recently, last month, received another request for an individual who was being released from federal prison up north and wanting to return back to his mother's home. And I find that this is a common occurrence where there's individuals who are trying to return. They don't have their own home, but they're trying to move back into their mother's home and then want a requesting Navajo Nation to allow them to be under probation? Can you give me some insight? And what are the policy recommendations? Thank you, Madam Chair and committee members.
Thank you for that, Delegate Crotty. That is an excellent question. Ms. Yellowhair?
Yes, Madam Chair. Thank you and good morning, Delegate Crotty. I appreciate that question you have. And we receive a lot of those kinds of requests. And I appreciate you asking so that we can share with our Law and Order Committee this particular process. It's called courtesy supervision. Basically, it's a courtesy to watch our neighboring partners, states, county, state, and federal Department of Corrections. And a lot of those requests are made, and there's a lot of people that are confused and or question what the process is when they make decisions and wrong decisions out there, and they get themselves in trouble, and they get their they go through the legal system, and sometimes they're paroled, and when they're paroled they request that they want to come home. And so what that is again, it's a courtesy supervision. That's basically what we call it now. There's a lot of things that can happen here. And so let's go with federal. That's what I'm hearing is the federal entities. Now, the federal supervision, when an individual is placed on federal probation, the federal probation officers, they do come on to Navajo and watch their own clients. They question and they go to their homes. We assist them, and we have our offices open and accommodate them to meet their clients at our district offices. That's the federal. They do come on to Navajo, and we've worked with them for many, many years doing that. And a lot of our the federal inmates that are coming back, the first very important thing that we ask our individuals, our Navajo clients that want to come home is, when they're asked to be released, it's not our agreement. First of all, it's not Navajo to decide whether or not they can leave the jurisdiction of where they committed the crime. It's not ours to decide that. It's their jurisdiction in the town or the county or the state that they committed the crime. That's where they have to get permission to leave. So they have to request to get approval through their probation officers or the parole officers to get, or the Department of Corrections sometimes, to get those approval. In some states, their probation and parole officers are situated in DOC, or they have an office there in DOC. And so they make those requests. And so when they do that, then we work with the probation officer. It's very easy when you work with probation officer to probation officers. It's hard when an individual is doing this from inside, when they're still in custody. They're not paroled yet. They might be coming up for parole in 2 months, but they don't know if they're going to be accepted, if they're going to get approved for parole, or if they're not. But they're preparing. So a lot of them question, can I come home? Is it okay for you guys to come home? That's what the state is saying, that you got to get approval from you guys first. So what we tell them is, you have to work with your parole officer or your caseworker. You get them to contact us, and we'll exchange documents, and we'll understand what the situation is. And that way we have a better leverage, and we have a better idea, because what we do is, anytime a person requests to come back onto Navajo through another jurisdiction, it comes through my office first, at the Chief Probation Officer's office. We log in that case. Then what I do is, if they, let's say for an example, a person is out from Shiprock, I will then contact Shiprock Probation Services, and I will send them a form, the complaint, and let them know this individual is requesting to come back to Navajo. First of all, who is this individual? Is there a victim in this, why he's out there? and how does the family think about it? Because we have to think about family. We have to think about the victims. We have to make sure that they're okay and they're understanding that their family members requesting to come home. Because sometimes, unfortunately, a victim will say no. They get scared, and sometimes they get upset when they're not informed that their perpetrators are coming back. They get scared. So it's the safety of these individuals. We ask them, go out there and check to see, let them know he's requesting and to be for Navajo to watch them. Now, again, because of jurisdiction issues, what we tell our the person that's sending that individual back, that you're only here on a courtesy because the person committed the crime in your jurisdiction. If this individual does not comply with the conditions and or courtesy supervisions and is not, checking in with our probation officers and think, oh, you're just Navajo and, they won't do anything. And that has happened. Then they'll abscond, they'll disappear. And so our officers will go check on them. Many attempts are made before they finally submit a summary that says they abscond. So we send that back to whoever, county, state, or federal. We tell them, they abscond. We checked on them. We checked with family. A summary is done, and then we give them that summary. And whatever process they take to revocate it over there in their jurisdiction, then that happens over there. But if it doesn't, and they check in with their probation officers and everything that the request that we receive, they have to go to counseling, they have to do drug testing, there's certain conditions that they're released back onto Navajo for. They do all that and it's successfully done, then we send that back to them and they close their cases. Again, it's just a courtesy. They're not transfer cases. We don't take over that case because two different jurisdictions. Navajo's jurisdiction is different than state, county, and federal. So that word courtesy is just that. We'll just watch him for you, make sure he's doing okay here. If he doesn't, we'll send it back. If he does and he finishes, yes, we'll send it back and say he did very well. But the conditions, if it says they have to go to counseling, the same concept here, referrals are done, working with the individuals one-on-one. Now, I know that over the years, we've seen a lot of individuals requesting from inside while they're still in custody. They're telling us my parole officer says Navajo has to make the approval. So I let them know, can you contact especially if they're still sitting in custody, they don't have a parole officer, they don't have a probation officer, but they have a caseworker. So we try to make connections with the case worker because sometimes they're preparing a case for parole. So we check again, we send our officers out to their homes where they're originally from. Then we send that back to a caseworker and says, oh, okay, yeah, this is what I need. I need something that says that their family is more than willing to have them home. That helps. But when they're doing it on their own with no assistance of a caseworker, a parole officer, a probation officer, they're just trying to get back. It's really hard because we have nothing to go on. And so, because if they come back on their own, they think they're home, but the jurisdiction issue, if they don't report back, they can violate their probation or parole and they can get in trouble because they're in a separate jurisdiction. So, but that's what we call the overall, whether it's coming from the feds, the state, or the county, it's a courtesy for us to watch. And one of the first things I usually ask when we receive these cases is some of them request to have electronic devices on them. Well, we're going to release him, but we have electronic device, ankle device on him. Can you watch him? We don't have that means here on Navajo today. We don't have electronic devices on anybody, nor have we received, and we tell them we don't have the means to watch and check on their surveillances. So we don't have that capability here on Navajo Nation to do that. So we tell them we can't. And as soon as they say we tell them that we can't, then they back off also, and they say, no, we got to have this surveillance on him. So we direct them to the nearest border town probation, and we just, I don't know how they make those arrangements themselves to do that, but that's one thing. And then we have sexual offenders also that come back. We direct them over to SORNA, make sure they're registered for SORNA first, but we rarely see those. And so if we do receive them, they're sent over to SORNA, make sure they're registered, make sure that the conditions are there. But again, we rarely see those. Most of what we see offenses that are coming back, that are trying to get back onto Navajo to have our Navajo Nation probation officers watch them, are DUIs. A lot of them are DUIs or battery. Misdemeanor offenses is what they have. Public intoxication, probably times 20, and so forth. And they end up sitting in county for a long time. And a lot of them are homeless. They don't know, they're out there. They choose to be out there. And so when you try to bring them home, they don't want to come home. They choose not to come home. So it just varies who the request is being made from, who they're making it through. Some of them do make it on their own. Some of them have the impression that all they need to do is go to council and council will grant them. But there is a process through our office called courtesy supervision. If they get a hold of us, make sure it's a caseworker, probation officer, or a parole officer that can connect with us. It's easier access, and it's easier for us to communicate with them and faster to get answers to each other so that person can be where they need to be. What they do it on their own, it's very hard, especially if they're corresponding by mail, because the mail goes back to them and it doesn't get to them. So we miss calls, we miss mail, and it's really difficult. And then each state has their different criteria and requirements, and they don't allow certain things. And but the individuals themselves, all they're asking is to come home. So I understand where you're coming from, Delegate Crotty, but there is a courtesy supervision process we have in place with Probation Parole Services here on Navajo. And you can contact me at my office, and we can, you can connect any of them making that request to our office, to my office, and I can help them. So that's what I have for you. I hope I answered your question. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Ms. Yellowhair. So with that, committee members and the delegates on the line, are there any other questions or comments regarding the report that has been provided to us here by Probation Services?
Not a Delegate James.
Delegate Vince James, the floor is yours.
Ich ha do kodo nicht nach Hause schnell. Die Toilet eating soon dort sind natürlich was ist schön hier anders als hier haben wir das schnell. Okay, die report diki nicht den at all you hat da ado la ates elziho koko nan sauce leider in die Jahre be ahos niki heute arts in Jahr doch heute salat das has anje tradit nana ana hoi ahi but na has anje da agadit ahi khashke has anje da ahot da bakha dort ke das zoigi den na sauce nicht kunle da no Navajo Housing Authority hot de okay oko that ya na sauce ya de sauce da hey na pohone za de la quite ho one lene na de dot le that you sentence ni ala you de since la oko any gi ho one but dit na don na pohone za da la na What you need to long, draw cut out now for housing authority. What on hit the neck again? The heart chin it, the message on heart chin. I cut out how one has any, how one let the yoke kid. I call cut a hot, a whole dash, by yet dash, ash by hard the other that's a hot, the ben a ho ado, not so such bahata to lado, hata to say that Jokot ado bahna adishkito lisako. Ni sa hashit eshi chihitin kato and the ilzi hoda. Ada benina ni holongo benina hot on da kai. Ado sa I kita iti kot la la kot ala nahigi ado be benashit nest heart ante ashe be eta konizi ashe ba konizi ade kodo hajoto le it out as it ben havajda estasi laws payodi danat ani hima as it danat estasi laws traditin dahil as anja shat so hotes in iskhishi at shadalia go be sen keys da den bezad nal so stahit as anje shat so hotes in hot adol inauli pa ako ni zin de kote hawan lini beshe na hui na jodan nini wala ko ila khit la to baba na ilan so benan hidi dish la ko kwadi dole ha shnalin hit la hasan le do shnalin ana ala je kwaiki na hata senta do shnal ke on do kodo ni ga do ni kloniki law and order committee kot ad hasti dole ha shnal madam chair.
Yeah, Shanella, thank you for asking that question. Before I give the floor back to Ms. Yellowhair, are there any other committee members or any delegates on the line who wish to ask questions to Ms. Yellowhair? Okay, not hearing anything. Ms. Yellowhair, if you could answer the question posed by Delegate Vince James, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Yat Eshanella, Delegate James. Ado, good morning. Quite not being kidding. Yeah, Ado in the shin quite. Not the kidding. Yanti the ne. This is the hard or Ahni Tia, which of the quite engine on the Shadil in a le courts that Banahot Aho. Banahot Aho. Later Austin Tino less larger. This done list or left or archer a dinal so to give the question kit not and conditions they nigga epic eat or less a archer hat ishi quite not it to benina the hot indicata a han shite all the child adult letter just ego the edo da Hawaii da do what has on the benina done kishti raho. Ado biha chajol on the bunch the quite the Lagana is stress station or that what leads you to alcohol and so forth. Not so what she said. Okay, raho nikin raho anal so assessment, informal assessment. Hade inasto hide ado India na couldn't hit ya in ya do nisago. Shite out the yada edo da just not mission on the batchini ya haliant or the hada hot edo da batchin the height da initially that is a hashine la eldist what the car shot neho or that eggy sa hot ado ancient ya car data has net a lot the approach of we want to help Nakati Luansha it there's just Nahazne Hajor, just Nahazne Hansha, Hait Ansha, Adon Nikoea, the Dabadi Neko. The first thing that's most important is to listen. Hajor, which Odo Ash, deepening Nahat Amasha, Yad Ankidia, Naso Kodesetta, Ado, Wadon Nishak a Kode, then Shibeso, then I gauge and Yasha Chinshin La, what it's no, ya hikahagi o olia the nebukat in the gate ole a kola session hajosh hadne a koibe a husband a koi hadoshin a yan kadi was a set all left to that what eshe a what a hige a ya hikaho we have had some probation officers that have gone to that extent of saying, you know, Shagan Sahudan, Shagan Halonde, Erota Hawanish Kedo, Esht and Koet the Quidishin Yahanasado, I have a criminal background, or Dashit and Epenina. So the work begins not with saying, okay, let's go to NHA and do this. What we tell them is, you have to work towards you, Ahwit Ziniki, Halate ado lesla halate est nado dasto ash and ni iten haik ahoit e les dos in the away in kitiga na lo di is kate in das sogo e bal e. That's what an assessment does, is a and leha the shin halfway. It takes months, you know, it's not an overnight recovery. It's not an overnight change. It takes a while. It takes trust. It takes the willing, the commitment to do that from a person to with a probation officer. Let's go to NHA. We don't do things for them. We do it side by side with them. One of the things that we really encourage, and one of the things that we have in probation services, and we still need other equipment for it, is what we call life skills, simple life skills. Life skills are, you know, some of our people don't know how to bank. You know, they just cash their check, put it in their pocket. But then the next day, some of them have never had their birth certificates. Some of them don't know how to renew applications from NHA. Some of them don't do that. Simple life skills. So what we want to do, we started doing this before the pandemic. We identified it years ago. It's just the equipment we don't have. But we have it now. We just need to have communication with our ITs to start it. And our IT department is aware of it. Simple life skills is just go to your computer, show them, teach them this is a computer. You can't just go to the counter of an office anymore. Go online. We're trying to teach our clients how to go online and use the simple computer, of perhaps even turning it on and going to the link of obtaining from Social Security office their Social Security to CIB to driver's license, things that is required on an application that's needed. That's what we're doing also. Ada, but again, it requires the equipment and the funding support to do that. And so those are things that we've already started doing. We have the equipment, we just need to get it out there and people to start coming in. Before the pandemic, we had probation officers actually driving them to the offices. Especially if they're in the areas of Shiprock, Crown Point, Chinle, Window Rock, or Tuba City, because their agency offices are just right there. If you're like out in Delcon, Kayenta, Tohajile, or Rama, you have to tell them, akon kesh all the wasta the shadi nash and yahadit ashin will do this. That's what they do with them. And as we speak today, and so we do help them. Those are simple life skills. Some of them it requires, like you said, Shanala, the NHA applications. Your adoleta, your kid, and they don't have that. The driver's license at that then, the Social Security numbers and the that then. And that's what our probation officers do today, is they go online to the Social Security office and they ask them, Social Security, na adult such a age to your kid, driver's license, we get them out of that all their life skills. Banking, we teach them how to bank. Our probation officers wear many hats, many hats. They're mentors, they're coaches, they're teachers, they're parents, they're counselors. It's a lot of things our probation officers do. But I appreciate you asking, because in this this part of applications, housing, we do help. If they need help, then I have very limited education and the commitment comes first. But you have to follow this. Some of them get through it, they come back here long, and so forth. But the requirements first of those applications, Social Security, CIB, and driver's license. And so our POs are online working with them, with some of them don't understand Navajo, the Nick Echideya, that's how they communicate with them. So it's a lot of time, engagement, and questioning, and it's just a lot that our probations go into that. And thank you for asking, Shanala. Yeah. But their background, if they want background history and all that stuff, they can go to the court. I believe there's even a identification background office in Window Rock also, but through our office, we usually have the probation officer obtain all the criminal background for them. It's easy access for them online, so they'll do that, but they're on probation when they're doing that. So with that said, Shanala, I hope I answered your question.
Thank you for that, Miss Yellow Hair. And thank you for these sharing that information. I think it's very important that this committee have a full understanding of what probation does. I was also reading through your report, Miss Yellow Hair, and I know that I guess it seems like there's still a lot of issues out there. I didn't see a kind of recommendations on how to address some of the issues that you're facing right now under probation services. We know that it is an important service that's provided to our Navajo people, and especially, I guess a lot of people don't really understand that what you guys do at probation services actually does help a lot of our victims here on the Navajo Nation. So it's important that we have a full understanding of what probation services does. So in terms of your report that you provided, can you provide this committee recommendations on how we can assist the probation services with fulfilling some of the requirements, and then also the expectations that are put upon your office in terms of rehabilitation, also maybe services that the courts are requiring of people, and then kind of maybe just some things that we need to be aware of as well, I guess in terms of what the judges are requesting from individuals that maybe cannot be completed. So I'd like to ask for that written report, if you could add that into this report. And I will state, Ms. Yellowhair, I'm reading through the report right now. I haven't gotten through all 10 pages yet. So maybe it's in here already. If it's in here, if you could just direct me to that page. If not, if you could add that onto this report that you provided to us. I don't require a response at this time, unless the information is already in the report. So with that, committee members and delegates listening in on the line, are there any other questions or comments at this time regarding the probationary services that are being provided here to our Navajo people? Okay, not hearing anything. The one thing I also forgot to also mention is your plan of operations. It looks like it was approved in 2013. Has that plan of operations been updated? And it's referencing LOCD-17-13. So just on the record, if you could just say, yes or no, whether that plan of operation has been updated, Ms. Yellowhair?
No, it hasn't.
Ms. Yellowhair, we will be providing a directive from the Law and Order Committee for your department to update your plan of operations. I'm surprised that none of us caught that during budget and finance. 2013 is a long time away. It's a long time ago, 2013, gosh, almost 10 years ago. So if we can start working on updating that plan of operations and have that presented to Law and Order Committee, preferably before December, if we can get that through. So with that, committee members, again, are there any other questions or comments? Okay, not hearing anything, we can go ahead and proceed forward at this time. A motion was established by Delegate Vince James, a second by Delegate Edmund Yazzie. A motion and a second, so we'll go ahead and proceed forward to a roll call vote to accept the report from Lucinda Yellowhair, Probation Officer with Probation Services. Sherelle, can you assist us with that roll call vote, please?
Yes, Honorable Otto, how do you vote?
Green. I vote green.
Thank you, Honorable Otto, votes green. Honorable Vince James, how do you vote?
Delegate James votes green.
Thank you, Honorable Vince James votes green. Honorable Eugene So, how do you vote? Honorable Edmund Yazzie, how do you vote?
Green.
Thank you, Honorable Edmund Yazzie votes green. Honorable Eugene So, how do you vote? With that, Honorable Madam Chair Charleston, you have 3 in favor, 0 opposed, and 2 not voting, Madam Chair.
Thank you for that, Sherelle. And again, thank you, Ms. Yellowhair, for providing this committee your verbal report and also the written report. At this time, committee members, I will say that we do need a directive to be sent to the probation services because their plan of operations has not been updated since 2013. So committee members, we do need this plan of operations updated. So I'll leave it to the committee members to establish a motion to do a directive. Again, the plan of operations, the last time that it was updated was in 2013. So if we can go ahead and think about that, committee members, we'll go ahead and proceed forward to, well, I guess let me ask Dana, are you still on the line?
This is Lurleen Tapahi. Dana had to step away for a moment. I can
Lurleen.
answer the question. Yes, Madam Chair.
Lurleen, is a directive the only way to get the plan of operations updated? Because again, it was last updated December 16th, 2013.
I don't think it's the only way, but it's certainly an appropriate way for the committee to make its wishes known to the program that it should be done. And I would also add a time frame that you would want it to be done within 30 days or something of that nature, or presented back to the committee within 30 or 60 days or something like that. That's what I would recommend, Madam Chair.
Thank you for that, Larlene. So with that, committee members, again, that option is on the floor, but please be mindful again that the plan of operations was last updated in 2013.
Madam Chair, Otto So.
Vice Chair Otto So, the floor is yours.
Well, let's do this. Let's just tell the program verbally, get it updated, get the plan to the Law and Order Committee within 30 days. Sure, they can crank out some in 30 days, and let's get a review, a draft to the committee within 30 days, and see what type of planning they could do, because I'm sure they'll listen, but some programs, yes, they don't listen, but maybe if we ask them, they'll gladly start it up. So that's just my thought. Instead of doing a directive, let's see if the program can get the program or get the plan of operation going sooner themselves. If they can't do it, that's when we do a directive. But let's just ask them nicely. Thank you.
That's a great plan, Vice Chair. Thank you. So with that, Ms. Yellow here, I know that Chief Justice is also on the line, as well as other members of the judicial branch. So we would like to ask nicely, verbally, that you guys start working on updating your plan of operation and have that to the committee within maybe 30 days. Is 30 days workable? I'll ask you guys first. Is 30 days workable? Chief Justice, Ms. Yellowhair?
Yeah, Madam Chair, this is Chief Probation Officer Yellowhair. 30 days from today, it lands on Thanksgiving Day. Would that be before Thanksgiving or the week after Thanksgiving? And yes, it's doable to update our plan of operation within 30 days.
So I want you to have a good Thanksgiving. So why don't we do it before Thanksgiving? I don't want you to be working through Thanksgiving. Is that something that you can do if you could present that before the committee on November 21st?
And if I could get assigned to us to work on this, then yes, get the update to you on and be ready and prepared and submitted by the 21st. That's doable.
Thank you so much for working with us, Ms. Yellowhair. Chief Justice, I'm sorry. Chief Justice, are you still on the line with us this morning?
Star 6.
Good morning. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear, Chief Justice.
Oh, great. Thank you. Thank you. I had to get prompted to do the star 6. Thank you very much. Madam Chair, Ado, members of the Law and Order Committee. Madam Chair, is this our time to present the information that we are on the agenda for? And may I proceed at this time?
No, Chief Justice, we just got finished with the presentation that was given to us by Lucinda Yellowhair, a probation officer with probation services. In the written report, Ms. Yellowhair indicates that the plan of operations was last approved on December 16th, 2013, and that's under LOCD-17-13. So we have asked her if they can update the plan of operations and present that to us on November 21st at the next at the Law and Order Committee meeting, so that we have an updated plan of operations. She did state that she can start working on that plan of operations, but what we're asking you, because you are the Chief Justice of the judicial branch, if that is something that the probation services, probation officers can start working on to get that presented before Thanksgiving.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Absolutely. I did hear the yes that the probation and parole can get that by November 21st, and we will gladly work with Lucinda on that. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief Justice. So with that, Ms. Yellow here, it sounds like you got the thumbs up to go ahead and start working on that. And again, on Lorraine, on November 21st, we will be getting a report as well as the plan of operations updated from probation services. So if we can make sure that that is on the agenda during that time. So with that, we'll go ahead and proceed forward to the next item on the agenda. Ms. Yellow here, I'd like to ask you to stay on the line as well as members of the judicial branch. I did request committee members if we could move, if somebody could motion to move up Ernest Harry Begay. And the reason for that is Utah Navajo Health System does offer some services that may be relevant and also be suitable for probation services to, I guess, make recommendations to the court. And so I'm hoping that we can get his report next so that we can hear what services Navajo Health System, the Behavioral Health Department under Utah Navajo Health System can do to help with probation services, since we are talking about rehabilitation and also seeking counseling services. We do have them on the agenda as item D. So if we can maybe possibly move him up so we can hear his report as well. Okay, not hearing anything.
Madam, we'll go ahead and stay on the line. Thank you. This is Lucinda.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Yellow here. So with that, I'm sorry. Okay, so with that, we'll go ahead and proceed forward to the next item on the agenda. I'm sorry, somebody's trying to speak and I can't hear what they're saying. Okay, so here we go. We have a report from Chief Justice Joanne Jane, Office of the Chief Justice, the Judicial Branch in regards to probationary judge evaluation within the last year and a half. Chief Justice, are you still on the line with us?
Yes, I am, Madam Chair. Would you just confirm that you can hear me?
Yes, I can hear you fine. Thank you, Chief Justice. So with that, committee members, we do have the Chief Justice on the line. Can I get a motion in this second to hear the report?
Shanella, this is Delegate James. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you, Delegate James.
Shanella, if you can hear me, I was trying to make a motion to suspend the 4 rules to hear the report from Mr. Ernest H. Begay.
Okay, since I didn't call, since there was no motion made for the next report, I'll go ahead and accept your motion at this time. Delegate Vince James. Delegate Vince James has a motion to suspend the floor rules to bring item 5D as item 5B. So with that, we do have a motion and a second. Committee members, are there any questions or comments at this time? Not hearing anything, we'll go ahead and move forward to take a roll call vote on the motion to suspend the 4 rules, to move up item 5D to item 5B. Sherelle, can you assist us with the roll call vote, please?
Yes, Honorable Otto, how do you vote? Honorable Vince James, how do you vote?
Delegate James votes green.
Thank you, Honorable Vince James votes green. Honorable Eugene So, how do you vote? Honorable Edmund Yazzie, how do you vote?
Green.
Thank you, Honorable Edmund Yazzie votes green. Honorable Otto Sill, how do you vote? Honorable Eugene Sill, how do you vote?
Otto So votes green. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Otto Sill votes green. With that, Madam Chair, you have 3 in favor, 0 opposed, and 2 not voting. Madam Chair.
So with that, we did recognize the motion to suspend the floor rules to amend the agenda to bring up item 5D to item 5B. So with that, I will go ahead and call the next report. That is under 5B. It's a report from Ernest H. Begay, Traditional Counselor, Behavioral Health Department with the Utah Navajo Health System in regards to the kinds of services that are provided and how he can assist the Navajo Nation with cases that needs referral, specifically those related to criminal cases. So with that, do we have Ernest Harry Begay on the line? Mr. Begay, if you're on the line and you need to unmute, it's *6 on your phone. Second call for Mr. Ernest H. Begay. Last and final call for Mr. Ernest H. Begay. So with that, we don't have a presenter. I apologize, committee members. I was under the impression that Mr. Ernest H. Begay was on the line. So with that, we'll go ahead and proceed forward to the next item on the agenda, which is a receiving reports under C. We have a report from Chief Justice Joanne Jane, Office of the Chief Justice, Judicial Branch, in regards to probationary judge evaluation within the last year and a half. Committee members, can I get a motion and a second to hear this report?
Motion, Delegate James.
Motion made by Delegate Vince James. Can I get a second?
Second by Otto So.
Second made by Delegate Vice Chair Otto. So with that, Chief Justice, you are on the call. You have presented to this committee before. Do you have any questions regarding the procedure before I turn the floor over to you?
Can you hear me at this time?
Yes, we can hear you, Chief Justice. Do you have any questions about the procedure before I turn the floor over to you for your presentation?
No, I do not. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that, Chief Justice. So with that, Chief Justice, you have 20 minutes on the clock to present your information. When you're done, let us know so that we can turn the floor over to delegates for questions. Chief Justice, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Madam Chair, Eugenia Charles Newton, Ado, and Kenat Ani, members of the Law and Order Committee. She Joanne Jane and she Kapahin Kenya Ani Bashishin. Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for the Law and Order Committee to have the Judicial Branch make a report in regards to the status of and the process of the probationary judges and justice that is in the judges' personnel policies and procedures of the Judicial Branch of the Navajo Nation. And I would also like to say a thank you for those who are listening. There are individuals that may be with the legislative or executive branch, and then also other colleagues, and then also with individuals from the public that may be on the call as well. So thank you very much. And we take this opportunity to just briefly, really quickly in a few minutes, have the people who are listening to tell you that the Judicial Branch has a set of personnel rules for judges and justices. They are personnel rules, And those were recommended by what is called the Judicial Conference, which is made up of judges and justices back in 2002. And that personnel recommendations, the policies and personnel rules were recommended to, at that time, was called the Judiciary Committee, which is now the Law and Order Committee back in 2003. At that time is when the Judiciary Committee, now the Law and Order Committee, approved of the rules. And within these rules, under the personnel rules for judges and justices, is a process. It's a process that the Judicial Conference had recommended, and it is found in Section 10 of the personnel rules for judges and justices. And under those rules, it lines up the judicial performance evaluations. So it's pretty much a detailed process that the judicial branch takes into consideration and follows when there are probationary judges or probationary justices. And so for individuals that are on the line that are not familiar with this process, is that Navajo Nation probationary justices serve 2 years, and also the justices serve 2 years. And during that time, according to the processes that are in this evaluation process, is that there are evaluations done. Now, the Chief Justice has the opportunity and actually the authority to appoint a performance review team during this time. So the performance review team, they're appointed, and it consists of myself as Chief Justice, a judge designated by a different judicial branch justice judge, a member of the Navajo Nation Bar Association commissioner, and then also a member of the Law and Order Committee. And these make up the Judicial Performance Review Team. So these are the individuals that gather the information by assistance with the Judicial Branch Human Resources Department. They bring together information that this team will take a look at in regards to looking at the performance of probationary judges and justices. And unlike other jurisdictions, the Judicial Performance Review Team is unique in the sense that it is within the judicial branches in the nation that we are reviewing judges. And certainly the review process is to see how the probationary judge is performing. We don't see this as a punitive process. However, if the review team does see maybe some areas that need training, some areas that may need to have some improvement and so forth, then that is the purview of the performance review team to go through. And what the judicial branch, what we did was we sent a memorandum. We sent it yesterday, and we assumed that the Law and Order Committee received that report. And what is in addition to that memorandum is a 6-page report. And certainly I wanted to preview the process for those on the line as to how the probationary judges and justices are reviewed. And there are some very detailed information that is taken into consideration by the review team. I would ask at this time, Madam Chair, if the Law and Order Committee members have received this report. And basically what it has is that we wanted to share with the Law and Order Committee, there's this timeline that we put together. The request to from the Law and Order Committee to the judicial branch and myself was, what has been the process or what have been the efforts in the last year and a half? And so what we did is we keep minute records. Our staff keeps records of this. So you'll find in the report that we gave to Law and Order Committee from pages 2 on to page 6, there is a timeline that we put together. And for those that cannot see this report, what it is that it designates each judge, because at this point we have We have 4 probationary judges going through the process, and we have 1 associate justice going through this process at this time. Each of those are in a process whereby the team has made many efforts, and most of the teams have met at least one time for the evaluation process. So going back to the list that we have, for example, we have like Judge 1, Judge 2, Judge 3, Judge 4, and the Associate Justice. And we have a timeline, and we felt that because of transparency, and then also because of the need to know by the public, because part of the judicial branch responsibility is to let the public know, how is it that our judges and justices, are reviewed. And so that's what we have. And my assumption is that this timeline of the evaluation process for the last year and a half can be shared with the public. And certainly it has, for example, it has the notification at the very beginning of the first 6 months. And then it has for the second 6 months for the first year. And then it also has the timeline for the second year, the first 6 months of the second year, and the second 6 months of the second year. So what happened is that 3 of the judges were confirmed in December, right before 2020. In December of 2019, there were 3 judges that were given probationary status by the Navajo Nation Council. And then after that, there was another judge that was confirmed at the later end of 2020, and then also the Associate Justice. And so I wanted to bring the fact out is that this may appear that the process may be somewhat behind. So I wanted to point out that although 3 judges were appointed at 2019, what happened was just 3 months later after that was when we got the pandemic. The first administrative order, it's called 13-2020 that I signed, put our staff in telecommuting process, meaning that the doors of the branch closed for the public, although there was still essential services. So we still had employees that were working and processing cases. But nonetheless, back to the process of what it may seem like that we are behind somewhat. And so the whole year in 20 and part of 21, it really put a slowness on the evaluation of the judges. I have to tell the listening audience that the review team, because it's the Chief Justice, a judge of the local district or a different district, the member of the Navajo Nation Bar Association Commission, and then also a member of the Law and Order Committee. So basically, there are these individuals. There are 4 individuals with this performance review team, and each and every one of them have their other duties that they work with, like the Law and Order Committee or the Commissioner for the Navajo Nation Bar Association, judge, and so forth. So to synchronize everybody's schedules and to try to get a time has been the major factor in how slow. In many instances, it feels that the probation judges and justice is moving forward. However, what I wanted to do is that I wanted to commend the review teams. We have review teams that, once we got together and had a schedule, we were able to have the justice or the judge on the line with us. And all of this is telework and it's telecommuting, and we're doing this all virtually. And normally, if we didn't have the pandemic, what we would have been possibly a meeting somewhere all together and so forth. But because of what we had to go through, and because we were telecommuting and we had to go virtual, it took a toll on the process for the evaluation. So I wanted to summarize that the judicial branch is going through the probationary evaluations for the judges and the justice. And as everyone knows, we have a new judge that was on board last Thursday. And so what we've done already immediately is to schedule and to start moving forward with the evaluation process for the new judge, so that we are within the time frame that the Judiciary Committee had put together for the judicial branch. And so I am here to go through the evaluation process. If there are any questions, any timelines that are with the Law and Order Committee. And one thing I would like to add is that the process that is in the personnel rules for evaluation, when you have 2 evaluations within 1 year, it is very, very time consuming. And even, without a pandemic, those evaluation periods take so much time to initiate. And so it may be that, we as the judicial branch can take a look at and have a dialogue with the Law and Order Committee in regards to, because it is the Law and Order Committee that eventually would look at these things, is to see how the process is. And certainly this process is 20 years old. We just got into 2022, so this process began in 2002. So Madam Chair and members of the Law and Order Committee, the other individuals that I would also like to commend with the judicial branch has been the Human Resources Department. That would be with Sharon Watchman, the Human Resources Director, Stephen City, who's the Director of the Administration of the Courts, and also the Office of Chief Justice Judicial Staff Assistant, Lavon Winika. So during this whole process, there are surveys that are done, evaluations that are done. So there is a group effort within the judicial branch. All of us work together. And there are times when, again, getting all of the material together, because there are surveys that are done, surveys that are sent to the Navajo Nation Bar Association, for example, and to judges and to court staff and others. And so law enforcement, for example. And so that whole process is demanding. It can get complex, and it puts a toll. It puts a toll on the judges and justices. So I would possibly invite another discussion about this process. It has been multiple. There are multiple performance review teams, because we are looking at 4 judges and 1 justice. And so having to put together an evaluation, because I do an evaluation of the judge and justice every 6 months, and that goes into the review team's evaluation. So with that, Madam Chair and members of the Law and Order Committee, thank you very much for the opportunity that you have given us to share what we have done, what we do, and that is in accordance with the personnel policy and procedures that are made for justices and then also with judges. Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the Law and Order Committee. This will conclude my report at this time. And we stand here ready for any questions. Myself and Lavon Winika and Stephen at City. Thank you very much.
Thank you for providing us that report, Chief Justice, and then also providing us the written report. I know that we have several delegates on the line. Would you be okay, Chief Justice, if we went ahead and we shared this report with the delegates who are on the line? I can tell you right now, we currently do have on the line with us the Law and Order Committee members We also have well, suddenly I can't see their names. We have Delegate Crotty on the line. We also have Delegate Daniel So, Delegate Nathaniel Brown. I believe earlier we had Delegate Paul Begay. I don't know if he's still on the line. We have Delegate Wilson Stewart on the line as well. So would you be okay, Chief Justice, if I went ahead and sent that report to them so that they have a copy of the report that was provided to us?
Madam Chair, absolutely, yes. There's not any information in here that could not be shared with the Law and Order Committee and or other individuals who are on the line that request for it. Again, the process is transparent, and again, the process is just following what's in the judge and justice's personnel rules for evaluation. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Chief Justice. I was just preparing the email, and I'm going to send it out to the 24th Navajo Nation Council, since there are always questions about the probationary judges, and then also, what is happening right now with them. So we do appreciate that report. So with that, committee members, the Chief Justice has provided the report to the Law and Order Committee regarding the probationary judges, and then the process that it takes to get the probationary judges confirmed. So at this time, are there any questions from committee members and delegates who are on the line? Second call, are there any questions for the Chief Justice at this time? Last and final call. Thank you, Chief Justice. There are no questions at this time. We do have a motion that was established by Delegate Vince James, a second by Delegate Otto So. So with that, committee members, we'll go ahead and proceed forward to a roll call vote. Sherelle, can you assist us with the roll call vote to accept the report that has been given to us here today by Chief Justice Joanne Jane on the probationary judge evaluation within the last year and a half?
Okay, Honorable Otto So votes green via text. Honorable Vince James, how do you vote?
Delegate James votes green.
Thank you. Honorable Vince James votes green. Honorable Eugene So, how do you vote? Honorable Edmund Yazzie, how do you vote? Honorable Eugene So, how do you vote? Honorable Edmund Yazzie, how do you vote? With that, Honorable Madam Chair Charles Newton, you have 2 in favor, 0 opposed, and 3 not voting. Madam Chair.
Thank you for that, Sherelle. So with that, we do have a favorable vote to accept the report. Chief Justice, we appreciate you being on the line and you giving us the report here at Law and Order Committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
So with that, we'll go ahead and proceed forward to the next item on the agenda. We do have item C, report from Judicial Conduct Commission. Mr. Robert Yazzie, Chairman of the Judicial Conduct Commission, on the status of judges and how judges are selected and so forth. So with that, do we have the Honorable Emeritus Robert Yazzie on the line?
Madam Chair, this is Manley Begay on the line. Chief Justice Yazzie sends his regrets. He wasn't able to make this meeting, and in his place, he's asked me to present the report.
Thank you, Mr. Manley Begay. We appreciate you being on the call. So with that, we do have a presenter on the line. Committee members, can I get a motion and a second to hear this report? Committee members, I need a motion and a second to hear this report from the Judicial Conduct Commission, Mr. Manley A. Begay, who is here on behalf of Mr. Robert Yazzie to give us a status of the report on judges and how judges are selected.
Delegate James, motion.
Delegate Vince James makes the motion. Can I get a second? Let me check my phone to make sure that I'm not missing any text messages. Committee members, can I get a second? Committee members, can I get a second? Okay, not hearing anything. I know that we do have delegates on the line. I'm just going to assume that this report, that the committee doesn't want to hear this report. So with that, last and final call for a second before I excuse Mr. Manley Begay.
Motion to adjourn, Delegate James.
There was not a second. There is a motion to adjourn at this time. Let me pull out my booklet, my committee booklet. Lauraleen, are you still on the line with us?
Yes, I am.
A motion to adjourn has been requested from Delegate Vince James. I don't have my committee booklet in front of me right now. I think I might have left it in my car. So can you tell us the rules for a motion to adjourn at a committee meeting?
Janella, this is Delegate James.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, Delegate Vince James, go ahead.
Due to loss of quorum, but if you want to, I guess we could do a roll call and then to determine if we do have a quorum or not.
Let's go
Thank
ahead
you.
and before we recognize the motion to adjourn, let's go ahead and check to see if we have quorum at this time. Cheryl, can you assist us and just do a roll call at this time?
Yes, roll call. Honorable Madam Chair Eugenia Charles Newton.
I am present, Cheryl.
Thank you, Honorable Madam Chair Eugenia Charles Newton is present. Honorable Otto So. Honorable Vince James.
Delegate James present.
Thank you, Honorable Vince James is present. Honorable Eugene So. Honorable Edmund Yazzie.
Here.
Honorable Edmund Yazzie is present. Honorable Otto So. Honorable Eugene So. Honorable Madam Chair Charles Newton, you have 3 members present. Madam Chair.
Thank you for that, Cheryl. That does constitute a quorum. Delegate Vince James, I know you put that motion on the floor to adjourn. Do you still want to proceed forward with the motion to adjourn?
Withdraw my motion, Janella. Thank you.
Thank you. So his motion is withdrawn. So at this time, we'll go ahead and we'll proceed forward then to old business, item 6 on the agenda. We do have 6A, legislation number 0130-19. Do we have Delegate Elmer Begay or Delegate Thomas Walker on the line? Second call, do we have Delegate Elmer Begay or Delegate Thomas Walker on the line? Last and final call, do we have Delegate Elmer Begay and or Delegate Thomas Walker on the line? Not hearing anything, we'll go ahead and proceed forward to item 6B, legislation number 0186-22. Do we have Delegate Wilson Stewart on the line? Second call, do we have Delegate Wilson Stewart on the line?
Madam Chair, yes, you do. I have to walk out of the meeting. Sorry.
Oh, I apologize. Okay, thank you for that. So committee members, we do have Delegate Wilson Stewart on the line with us at this time. Lorraine, can you go ahead and read legislation number 0186-22? Just provide us a recap. I believe that this legislation was already read into the record. Lorraine?
Yes, Madam Chair and members of the Law and Order Committee. Legislation number 0186-22, an act relating to law and order, resources and development, and Navajo committees and the Nomination Council, asserting sovereignty and taking over primary regulatory authority from the federal government, Office of Surface Mining and Reclamation Enforcement, over all coal mining lands located on the nomination, enacting a waiver of sovereign immunity, and establishing new sections in Title 18 at 18 NNC subsection 1701 at SEEK, sponsored by Honorable Wilson C. Stewart Jr., and a motion was made by Honorable Eugene So, second by Honorable Otto So. This legislation was tabled to October 24th. Motion by Honorable Otto So, second by Honorable Eugene So, to table this legislation. The Law and Order Committee needed full attention from the sponsor, and the sponsor agreed to table this legislation. The legislation stays with the Law and Order Committee until all questions are answered. The agent will report back to Law and Order Committee on October 24th, 2022. Madam Chair.
Thank you for that, Lorraine. So with that, this legislation was tabled. So we do need a motion and a second to take it off the table to have further discussions on this legislation. So with that, committee member, what is the will of the committee? Committee members, again, we do need a motion and a second and a vote to take this legislation number 0186-22 off the table to have further discussions. Second call. Last and final call, legislation number 0186-22 was tabled here at the Law and Order Committee with the agreement from the sponsor, Delegate Wilson Stewart. We do need a motion and a second to take this legislation off the table. Okay, not hearing anything. Delegate Wilson Stewart, this legislation does proceed forward regardless of not getting a motion, a second to take it off the table. The report was signed. So it will proceed forward to the Resources and Development Committee. So thank you for being on the line, Delegate Wilson Stewart.
Thank you, Madam Chair and LLC.
So with that, committee members, we proceed forward to items, the next item on the business under old business C. We do have a report from Larry Chief, Fire Chief with the Navajo Nation Fire and Rescue Services on the status of the equipment purchase using tax dollars, what equipment was purchased, and a summary breakdown on the cost. This report was provided verbally to us on October 10th, 2022. The report was given to us by John Williams, the fire captain. At the end of the meeting, the Law and Order Committee members did request for a written and a verbal report to be given by Mr. Chi on Monday, October 24th, 2022. Do we have Mr. Chi on the line with us at this time?
Madam Chair, I'm on the line. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Mr. Chi. Thank you for being on the call with us at this time. So with that, committee members, we do have the presenter on the call with us. I do need a motion and a second to proceed forward with the report from Mr. Chi. Second request, we do need a motion and a second to hear the report provided to us here by Mr. Chi. He is on the line. Last and final request from committee members. I need a motion and a second to hear the report from Mr. Larry Chi, Fire Chief with the Navajo Nation Fire and Rescue Services. Mr. Chi is on the line. Not hearing a motion and a second. Mr. Chi, we appreciate you being on the call. We're going to go ahead and excuse you at this time since there was no motion and second provided by the committee members. So with that, committee
you.
members, thank you for being on the call, Mr. Chi.
Thank you. I did submit the written report to your office assistant there, so you do have the written report.
Okay.
And if there's any questions, my email is available, specific and general questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chi, for being on the line. So with that, committee members, we move forward to item number 7, new business. We are at legislation number 0180-22. Do we have the sponsor, Delegate Rick Nez or Delegate Wilson Stewart on the line? Ashwadits, Lorraine, can you hear me?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Okay, just making sure. Second call, we do need a sponsor, Delegate Rick Naz or Delegate Wilson Stewart. Are you on the call?
Madam Chair, I'm here again. Sorry again, I'm walking out of the meeting.
Okay.
And then let me go get chairman too. He's in the other side.
Thank you. We do have a sponsor or co-sponsor on the call. So with that, Lorraine, can you go ahead and read legislation number 0180-22 into the record, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the Law and Order Committee. Legislation number 0180-22, an action relating to resources and development, law and order, budget and finance, and Navajo committees and the Navajo Nation Council, authorizing the Attorney General to advance fixed cost litigation account funds to support the legal fees attributable to the individual federal torts claims act cases filed by approximately 300 individual tribal members for money damages caused by the Gold King mine spill, waiving 2 NC subsection 1961B and 1964B. This will move forward to Budget and Finance, Navajo Nation Council, and has gone through the 5-day comment process. And there are no comments attached. And there is a committee report from the Resources and Development Committee dated October 5th. It was voted 401. Vice Chair not voting. And attached is the roll call vote tally sheet from our RDC. Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Lorraine. So with that, committee members, legislation number 0180-22 has been read into the record. Can I get a motion and a second?
Motion by Otto So.
Motion made by Vice Chair Otto So. Can I get a second? Second call, can I get a second for legislation number 0180-22? Last and final call, I need a second for legislation number 0180-22. Since there is no second, Law and Order Committee is not the final authority in this case. So legislation number 0180-22 does proceed forward to Budget and Finance, regardless of whether a second was established. This is actually precedence that I'm referring to. As I recall, when my hardship legislation was presented in front of a particular committee, there was not a second. And at that time, we were informed that action was taken on this legislation by merely putting it on the agenda and it receiving a motion. So therefore, legislation number 0180-22, even though this legislation did not get a second, it does proceed forward to the Budget and Finance Committee. Thank you for being on the call, Delegate Rick Nez, our Chair Rick Nez, and Delegate Wilson Stewart.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
So with that, committee members, we then proceed forward to item 7B, legislation number 0193-22. Do we have the sponsor on the line? Delegate Otto So?
Madam Chair, I'm on the line. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate Otto So is on the line. Lorraine, can we go ahead and read legislation number 0193-22 into the record, please?
Yes, Madam Chair and members of the Law and Order Committee. Tracking number 0193-22, an act related to law and order, Budget, Finance, and Navajo committees and the Navajo Nation Council, amending 12 NNC subsection 820N to change the lapse of certain appropriations. This will move forward to Budget, Finance, Navajo Nation Council. Attached is Exhibit A, which is Title 12 Fiscal Matters, Chapter 7 Appropriations, Section 820 Overall Budget Policies, and has gone through the 5-day comment, and there are no comments attached to the legislation, Madam Chair.
Thank you for that. We do have the sponsor on the line. Committee members, can I get a motion and a second for this legislation?
Motion.
Motion made by Delegate Edmund Yazzie. Can I get a second?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you, Delegate Vince James.
Delegate James seconds the motion.
Delegate Vince James seconds the motion. So with that, committee members, legislation number 0193-22 has gone through the 5-day comment. It has been posted. So we can do this 2 ways, committee members. If there are any questions, we'll allow the sponsor to present the information and we can ask questions and vote. Or if there are no questions from the committee members, we can go ahead and proceed forward to the vote. How would the committee like to proceed forward? Are there any questions for legislation number 0193-22? Second call, are there any questions for legislation number 0193-22? Last and final call, are there any questions for legislation number 0193-22? Not hearing anything. Sherelle, can you go ahead and help us with a roll call vote, please?
Honorable Vince James, how do you vote?
Delegate James votes green.
Thank you, Honorable Vince James votes green. Honorable Edmund Yazzie, how do you vote?
Green.
Thank you. Honorable Edmund Yazzie votes green. Honorable Eugene So, how do you vote? Honorable Otto So, how do you vote?
I vote green.
Thank you. Honorable Otto So votes green. With that, Madam Chair, you have 3 in favor, 0 opposed, and 2 not voting, Madam Chair.
Thank you for that, Sherelle. So with that, Vice Chair Otto So, legislation number 0193-22 does proceed forward to Budget and Finance. Thank you for being on the call, ready to answer questions for your legislation. So with that, we'll go ahead and
You're
proceed
welcome.
forward to item number 7C, legislation number 0195-22. The speaker or the sponsor in this case is myself, Delegate Charles Newton. Vice Chair, can I get your assistance on this part of the agenda?
Yes, ma'am. I can go ahead and chair the meeting for this section of 7C. With that, can I get staff to read the legislation 195 into the record at this time?
Thank you, Vice Chair and members of the Law and Order Committee. Tracking number 0195-22 and action relating to the Law and Order Committee and Navajo committees. Supporting United States Congressional Bill HR 2739 titled Securing Urgent Resources Vital to Indian Victim Empowerment Act. This will move forward to Navajo. Exhibit A is the HR 2739 is the bill that's attached and has gone through the 5-day comment process, and there are no comments attached to the legislation. Mr. Vice Chair, thank you.
Thank you very much. Legislation has been read into the record. With that, I'm going to move forward, call for a motion. Calling for a motion, going once. Committee members of the Law and Order Committee. Can I get a
Delegate James
motion?
motions.
Honorable James motions. I'm going to call for a second in motion. Second. Very much, Honorable Edmund Yazzie. With that, we have a motion set in place by Honorable James and a second motion set in by Honorable Edmund Yazzie. Particular legislation was read into the record. Again, we could address this two ways. If you have any questions on the particular to the legislation, we could allow the sponsor to make the introduction for the legislation. If not, we can proceed forward with the vote. So with this, how do you guys proceed to move on? What? Twice? 3 times. With that, Sherelle, go ahead and proceed with roll call vote for legislation 0195-22.
Okay, thank you. Honorable Madam Chair Eugenia Charles Newton, how do you vote?
Delegate Charles Newton votes green.
Vice Chair Otto, do we have a motion in a second?
Yes, we have a motion in place by Honorable James and a
Okay.
second in motion by Honorable Yazzie.
Okay, I was looking at 201. Sorry about that. Thank you. Honorable Madam Chair Eugenia Charles Newton votes green. Honorable Vince James, how do you vote?
Delegate James votes green.
Thank you. Honorable Vince James votes green. Honorable Eugene So, how do you vote? Honorable Edmund Yazzie, how do you vote? Honorable Eugene So, how do you vote? Honorable Edmund Yazzie, how do you vote? With that, Honorable Vice Chair Otto So, you have 2 in favor, 0 opposed, and 3 not voting, Vice Chair.
I vote green.
This is Edmund.
Thank you.
Edmund
With
Yazzie
that-
votes green.
Thank you, Honorable Vice Chair Otto So, you have 3 in favor, 0 opposed, and 2 not voting, Vice Chair.
Thank you very much. Motion carried. Legislation 0195-22 moves on to the next committee. With that, we 3 in favor, 0 opposed, and Vice Chair not voting. So with that, motion carries. Madam Chair, I'm gonna turn the gavel back over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair, for your assistance on that. So we'll go ahead and proceed forward to the next item on the agenda. Under new business 7, we do have D, legislation number 0201-22. We do have the sponsor as Delegate Rick Nez. Delegate Rick Nez, are you on the call?
Madam Chair, he's still in the meeting, but I'm here, Delegate Stewart.
Delegate Stewart, are you a co-sponsor on the legislation?
I believe I did sign up. Let me check the legislation, Madam Chair.
Okay, Office of Legislative Services, can you guys verify that Delegate Wilson Stewart has signed legislation number 0201-22 as a co-sponsor?
Madam Chair, no, this is the wrong one. So let me go grab him for you. Hold on, Madam Chair.
Committee rules don't have hold on.
Well, I will do a second call. How is that? Legislation.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
Chairman requests that it be moved to the next meeting because we are down at Twin Arrows with the Navajo partition land. So he's taking notes, Madam Chair. So he kindly requests that it be moved to the next meeting with LLC.
Okay, thank you, Delegate Stewart. Tell him we'll go ahead and accommodate that. Lorraine, can you make sure legislation number 0201-22 gets onto the next Law and Order Committee agenda? The next Law and Order Committee meeting will be scheduled for November 14th at 10:00 a.m.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. I'll let him know.
Thank you, Delegate Stewart. So with that, we'll go ahead and proceed forward to item 7E, discussion. We do have a there was a request October 26th or the 28th to meet with the prosecutor's office. This is for discussion purposes, but just know that there was a request that we meet with the prosecutor's office on the 26th or the 28th regarding the amendments made to Title 17. And just as a recap, committee members, prosecutor's office, police department, criminal investigations, Department of Justice, and I believe FBI, AUSA, they all met last week while we were in fall session. They met in Flagstaff, and they started working on the Title 17 amendment. So this meeting that we are requesting right now on the 26th or the 28th will be for getting an update on what was completed during the week, and then also any information that the committee needs to be aware of in terms of Title 17. So at this time, for discussion purposes, I will need a motion and a second so that we can start this discussion. Committee members?
Vice Chair will motion.
Vice Chair makes a motion. Second by Delegate Vince James. So with that, committee members, just as a recap, the prosecutor's office did meet with FBI, with the United States Attorney General's office for, I believe it was Arizona and New Mexico. They also met with Navajo Nation Police Department, Navajo Nation Criminal Investigations, and I believe that the Department of Justice was also present during that time. We As you know, committee members, we have been pushing to get Title 17 amended. We did start the process, and what prosecutor's office did was they took over and they met all last week in Flagstaff to talk about what changes need to be made. I did provide them guidance in that we did, the Law and Order Committee met with several communities since 2019. We did meet in various locations to hear the concerns coming from various chapters regarding the changes that have to be made to Title 17. The recommendations that I did give to the prosecutor's office is to recognize victims' rights and then to also offer them more opportunity. There is a victims' rights legislation that was completed that was forwarded to prosecutor's office, and they did review that. There was also a recommendation to get tougher with crime. And the reason for that is we have heard from chapters of the various happenings going on in the community. And from my understanding from the chapters, there has been a request to address a lot of the crimes that are happening on the Navajo Nation. And so with that, that was the recommendation that I did give to the prosecutor's office, as well as sharing information with the prosecutor's office on what the various tribes are doing with their criminal codes. And during the tribal consultation that I attended in Alaska, I was able to hear how tribes are addressing crime within their communities. I also had that same opportunity when I provided testimony at the tribal consultation in Albuquerque in front of the United States Department of Justice. And so I did get to hear from various tribes on the way that they're handling their crimes within their communities. And I did share that information with the prosecutor's office as a means of tribes understanding and also, well, I guess understanding sovereignty and how a lot of the tribes are starting to practice that sovereignty and implementing laws within their code. One such law is we do have the Pueblos that provided testimony to the Department of Justice, and they did state that right now they have excluded all of their sex offenders from their Pueblo communities as a means of protecting their children. And the only way that a member of the Pueblo tribe can come into the community, they can come to visit. However, they are not allowed to stay in the community. During their visitation, they have to have one person as their sponsor who stays with them during that whole time. And they also take on the responsibility of that individual. And so that is that was one way that that the tribes are implementing their sovereignty. We also got testimony from I believe it was the Apaches, who did provide testimony on how they are taking steps to also do exclusionary laws to try to protect their members from, again, child sexual assault or child sexual abuse. There's also something coming down the pipeline with domestic violence. And then also those who are trafficking drugs. So that was another example that was used during that time when I did share with the prosecutor's office in the ways that various tribes are trying to implement sovereignty within their criminal codes. I also informed the prosecutor's office that and I went back to my notes to make sure that I got this correctly, but the Pueblos are also pushing to, I'm not sure if they have done it already or if they are in the process of doing it. It sounded like, based on the testimony that was provided by one of the Pueblo leaders there, I think his name was Robert Medina. That's what I have on my notes. They talked about how I believe they are not allowing public defenders into their courts to defend individuals. And the reason they did that was because based on their cultural beliefs, their traditional beliefs of taking responsibility when you've done something wrong, you know, and what Mr. Medina, I believe it was Mr. Medina, what he did state was that the public defenders have confused a lot of the perpetrators, and he made it clear that there is no constitution recognizing, you know, the rights of a perpetrator within the Pueblo communities. And so for that reason, they give offenders the opportunity to admit to their crimes and then also try to assist them during that process. I'm trying to reach out to Mr. Medina to get a little bit more information on what he was talking about in that context. But again, that was provided at the tribal consultation that took place in Albuquerque. But I am trying to reach out to Mr. Medina to make sure that I wrote down the notes correctly. But I know that that was one of the ways that they talked about how they're restoring sovereignty into their code. And also, I guess, practicing that sovereignty. So those were some of the examples that I did share with the prosecutor's office on Monday. I did take a break from hearing the reports during fall session so that I could take part in the providing some context to the prosecutors who were in the office, as well as those who were in attendance. So with that, the purpose of scheduling a leadership meeting, it's actually a leadership meeting, not a special meeting, Lorraine, it's a leadership meeting for either October 26th or October 28th, is to get a report from Vernon Jackson, the chief prosecutor, on the work that was completed with the Title 17 amendment and any issues that they may have run into that the Law and Order Committee can help assist them with while they're working to amend Title 17. So with that, committee members, if you could pull out your calendar books and look at October 26th or October 28th as a possible time to do this leadership meeting. We're looking at possibly 2 hours to get a report from Mr. Jackson, and then also allowing us time to ask questions regarding the Title 17 amendment. So with that, committee members, we are open to discussion at this time.
Madam Chair.
Vice Chair Otto, the floor is yours.
Yes, I would like to see if we could go ahead and just schedule for Friday committee. It's probably going to be call-in, so that will be great. I believe it gave us 2 dates, 26th and the 28th, and 26th I think we have things. We may have other things scheduled too. So I think Friday is probably a good day for all of us. Thank you. That's just my recommendation. I have a motion for Friday. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Vice Chair. I also am available on Friday as well for this meeting, committee members. Are there any objections to meeting at 10 o'clock on Friday with Chief Prosecutor Vernon Jackson at 10 o'clock?
Nala, this is Delegate James.
Delegate Vince James, go ahead, the floor is yours.
So Friday, we're going to be having the best homecoming Ganado Hornets parade on Friday. 8 a.m. Just wanted to let you guys know.
Okay, so with that, we do have 2 delegates who are available, one who's not available. Delegate Edmund Yazi, Delegate Eugene So. What are your thoughts for the 28th meeting at 10 o'clock a.m.?
Madam Chair, I concur. Good with the dates.
Delegate, thank you, Delegate Edmund Yazi. Delegate Eugene So, are you on the line? Okay, not hearing anything from Delegate Eugene So. He also wasn't present through this whole meeting. So we do have 3 members who can make that meeting at 10 o'clock. So let's go ahead and schedule that meeting at 10 o'clock on the 28th with Chief Prosecutor Vernon Jackson. And Lorraine, if you can go ahead and get out an email right away to let Mr. Jackson know that at 10 o'clock we'll be calling upon him, or another, if he wants to have a prosecutor assist him during that time, to give us a report on what was accomplished during the week of October 17th through the 21st while they work to amend Title 17. So with that, committee members, let's go ahead and solidify October 28th at 10 o'clock a.m. with a vote. Sherelle, can you assist us with that vote, please?
Yes, Honorable Otto, so how do you vote?
I vote green.
Thank you, Honorable Otto, so votes green. Honorable Vince James, how do you vote?
Delegate Jan votes red.
Thank you, Honorable Vince James votes red. Honorable Eugene So, how do you vote? Honorable Edmund Yazi, how do you vote?
Green.
Thank you, Honorable Edmund Yazi votes green. Honorable Eugene So, how do you vote? With that, Honorable Madam Chair Charleston, you have 2 in favor, 1 opposed, and 2 not voting, Madam Chair.
Thank you for that, Sherelle. So with that, we have selected a date for October 28th at 10 o'clock a.m. Lorraine, please make sure that you reach out to Chief Prosecutor Vernon Jackson and let him know that this is a leadership meeting. It is a leadership meeting. We will be calling upon the delegates and then also the Chief Prosecutor during that time. It will not be open to the public, and the only reason for that is because none of these laws have been approved and no legislation has been provided. We're just going to get a report from Mr. Jackson on the work that was completed and issues they may have during that time.
Thank you.
Vice Chair Otto, so your phone, you please mute it.
I'm sorry.
You're fine. So with that, committee members, we'll go ahead and proceed forward to item number 8, close of the meeting. Before I ask for a motion to adjourn, are there any announcements that need to be made at this time? Not hearing anything, I will remind the committee members that our next Law and Order Committee meeting is scheduled for November 14th at 10 o'clock a.m. Our next meeting is November 21st at 10 o'clock a.m. And we are meeting on November 28th at 10 o'clock a.m. Committee members, the 28th, just so you know, we can postpone that meeting to possibly the 29th because that is actually the Monday coming back from Thanksgiving. I know that a lot of people take time off during that time, but just know that that is open. If you want to email me to make that request, we can go ahead and put that on the November 14th committee meeting as a possible date. We also have December 12th, the 19th, and then we also have the 26th where we have regular scheduled Law and Order Committee meetings that will be that are on the calendar. Committee members, also keep in mind that we do have a 10 o'clock Nabikiatskit scheduled for the 27th, which is in a couple of days. And then after that, our next meeting is on the 10th, November 10th, which is after general elections. Committee members, the last thing that I will announce at this time is just for those of you who have not looked at your email, apparently there was a Department of Transportation tribal consultation with the federal government that was that is scheduled for the 25th, which is tomorrow, and the 26th. We just got the letter today. We just got the letter this morning. So again, Council, Navajo Nation Council just received that tribal consultation letter. We don't know who had the letter, but it was announced on the Washington, D.C. I guess their announcements that they make about this tribal consultation. That tribal consultation, in case some of you have not read your email, that tribal consultation is taking place in Albuquerque tomorrow and again on Wednesday. The tribal consultation, the purpose of that is to hear from tribes on the infrastructure and investment. I guess the Jobs Act, the bipartisan infrastructure legislation, or the law that was passed, and basically to get input from tribes. It sounds like a very, very important meeting, and it's very unfortunate that council just became aware of this morning. But if you can reschedule your meetings for Tuesday and Wednesday, I would like to recommend that you take part in this because it does deal with the roads, the bridges, the infrastructure that's needed here on the Navajo Nation. So just an FYI on that. It is in our email. It was sent to us this morning from Chief of Staff Sherilyn Yazzie at 10:53 a.m. this morning. So just a heads up. The last thing I will announce, committee members, is that Intech Navajo Transitional Energy Corporation is doing a boot donation to our police academy tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock a.m. So if you guys can make it there to the Chinle site, I will be there to help assist. So if you can make it at that time, please swing by. If not, then that's okay too. So with that, committee members, those are the only announcements that I have at this time. Since there are no delegates who want to make any announcements, I'm open to hearing a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, Delegate James.
Motion to adjourn made by Delegate Vince James. Can I get a second?
Auto vote, motion, second motion, and vote screen.
Delegate Vice Chair Otto So seconds the motion. So with that, Sherelle, can you assist us with the roll call vote to adjourn?
Yes, Honorable Otto So votes green. Honorable Vince James, how do you vote?
Delegate James votes green.
Thank you, Honorable Vince James votes green. Honorable Eugene So, how do you vote? Honorable Edmund Yazzie, how do you vote?
Green.
Thank you, Honorable Edmund Yazzie votes green. Honorable Eugene So, how do you vote? With that, Madam Chair, Charles Newton, you have 3 in favor, 0 opposed, and 2 not voting. Madam Chair.
Thank you for that, Sherelle. So with that, the Law and Order Committee for the 24th Navajo Nation Council is hereby adjourned at 1:13 p.m. Thank you everyone for being on the call, and until our next Law and Order Committee, you guys be safe out there.